Let's get into picks and bans for game number 3 here. Cyclone on the right side of Big Money eSports. Still like that name, even though they could use a cash injection real quick. We'll see if it works out here. Do I have any more? Can I keep going?
It just...
You think I got more in the
There is a leprechaun.
You think I got more in the bank, Taco? Huh?
There's got to be a Fafnir line in here somewhere. I'm sure you can dig it up.
I really hope not. I don't want them to play Fafnir. I don't think he's a good enough character at this time, so please don't if you're looking for the win. Odin and Bacchus banned out here by the Big Money eSports team. CycloneGG on the other side, taking care of Freya and ShaolinSSinS. That's going to leave King Arthur, baby. Big Money eSports selecting King Arthur, baby. That's how you do it. King Arthur, one of the more absurd characters in the game. Once you build a Glad Shield, he can't lose the lane. So the strategy is to just kind of avoid him, which is interesting because when I was having this conversation on the Reddit and with a number of people, King Arthur is arguably a little strong right now, but you can beat him. But the way to beat him is so foreign to a lot of Smite players that it just seems absurdly difficult because they're not used to like spreading out, collapsing, real MMO style. I don't know. King Arthur is a new type of character and people just don't know how to play against it.
I think the big problem with King Arthur is that sure there are ways to punish him and sure there are a lot of like micromanaging involvements that you could introduce to help control him a little bit better from the solo side of the map, but I just feel like he's one of those guys where even if you're punishing him, at a certain point, you're still leaving yourself susceptible to being punished elsewhere on the map by forfeiting all of that pressure and just focusing purely on solo lane. Well, you better make sure that your dual lane or your mid laner are able to hold their own. Otherwise, you're running the risk, I think, of those two lanes then spiraling out of control and the enemy team just looking to shift attention away from solo by then focusing those two lanes individually. But also, it's just the matter of the fact that if you can have a strategy, I think, designed that you're 100% certain is able to bring down this god, then go for it. But I think for the most part, this could be something that comes back to haunt Cyclone, letting King Arthur through.
It's possible. Artio, definitely one of the characters that's perhaps more equipped to deal with King Arthur. King Arthur has 6-ish abilities, and 3 of them are cut short by way of the cripple, so that's a nice look. A number of other teams have cut him down by getting bringing an execute alongside the draft because of how difficult he is to kill. If you can provide an execute, you don't actually have to kill him. You just get him low enough. So Cyclone now on the clock. The bans come out. 2 hunters banned out by Big Money eSports. And the Achilles and the Daji banned out. So the Sun Wukong will be the choice. I don't like that.
I think Cyclone were just looking for a safe pick that they could hopefully stalemate the lane with. Seeing the Pele and the Hera, I mean, Artio is always going to be a big standout member, to I think, when handling a King Arthur. And also, I think Artio, the Cripple Field, can go a long way just when trying to deal with an Agni, Jing, and Kuzenbo. AO as well, but AO, I think, actually just makes things even better here in my mind for Big Money. This is a slam dunk of a team composition here from Big Money, and I see some nice component pieces here from Cyclone. They've got the Hera, they've got the Pele, but my big issue here is that they don't really seem to have consistent follow-up upon each other. I think that it's not really a healthy blend of, like, you know, heavy area denial or like heavy burst potential. It's kind of half and half on both, and when you're only putting 50% into something, I mean, the enemy team, they've got 100, they put all of their points into one specific draft, I think, geared towards just isolating members and bringing everybody down in an instant.
Well, we'll see if Big Money eSports have made the investment they need to get the ROI. Right now, casters.
Well, let's head on down to Wall Street and check on those returns for Big Money eSports. Right now, they're looking pretty good. You know, Tully, I verbally exclaimed out loud when I saw the King Arthur because I just assumed you permabanned, but apparently Cyclone aren't worried. It's up to Snadows now to get some value out of this pick.
That's how you could tell that you really despise playing against ShaolinSSinS, because that's what Cyclone preferred to ban.
It's good.
Over the Arthur. Like, Freya's a standard ban, so is Arthur, but when you're kind of conceding one of those two because you're banning away ShaolinSSinS, you're having nightmares during the darkest of nights, clearly.
Well, to be fair, it's been getting first picked a lot in the SPL right now, so the ShaolinSSinS is highly valued. I just don't know if it's overvalued over the King Arthur, as there's already aggression by this purple buff. Beaudilla's dropped the horrific emblem just to harass out Conviction a bit, and he certainly will harass him, but not steal the buff.
Beaudilla's lucky there's no Sumo Slam available, because that would have been an easy Tier 2 tower push, and that would have been a death.
Adaption's low in mid as well, as he has to drop beats. He went with the Bancroft's rush, and maybe that's not quite giving him enough, as Beaudilla and Axiom are aggressing into the red buff as well and bullying Xerxes away. It looks like they even stole it. Axiom has the red buff around his waist.
This is a common strategy when you have superior clear in the duo lane. You help clear the wave a little bit with one ability, and then you go harass the enemy as they're doing their purple buff. And that allowed Axiom to get solo farm for at least the archers. And after clearing the red buff and the one wave, hitting level 2 on the Artemis has a little bit of extra poke power now, having 2 abilities, but having to wrap around after confirming their own purple buff.
I like this, though, because this is the one thing Arthur can't do, is stop this from happening. He's not over here. You know, he's isolated in solo lane right now. So if you're Cyclone thinking, well, they've got a really strong mid to late game pick in this Arthur once he starts rotating, then this is kind of what you do, right? You, before that even becomes an issue, you just aggress into the jungle. They've got a Wukong support.
You don't have to wait to the mid to late game to create pressure other places of the map. I think Variety has showed that by invading the speed
1v4ing, yeah.
as soon as Gladiator's shield was complete. And that could be another option here for Snadows as soon as he gets that item to look for multiple speed buff invades.
Yeah, Variety, he made Arthur look even better, so I don't know if Snadows will quite rise to that level, but certainly he has every opportunity to do it. He's up against the Artio, which is a good matchup into the King Arthur, obviously, with the cripple field. And not the same as shutting him down, but it'll slow him down.
It'll eliminate 3 of his 6 non-ultimate abilities, and on top of that...
I know that that's very serious, it just sounds funny to say it, I'm sorry.
I have to specify non-ultimate abilities, because like otherwise I'll say it eliminates 3 of his 8 abilities.
Goodness gracious.
At the end of the day, despite taking that into consideration, even through the cripple, Arthur still has a relatively lax time, so long as the Artio doesn't have her Shoes of Focus and Breastplate of Valor complete. Once these 2 items are complete for Artio, it doesn't matter who she's against. She will win that matchup.
Y'all in some trouble. YarBadKid, he's rotating over to try and make sure they can steal away this red buff where they've been aggressing so far. Beaudilla still the furthest forward. It looks like they won't be able to find any kills, and they won't be able to find the buff either. Big Money secures it for themselves. As you can see, it's there for adaption.
Did use Purification Beads for Spartan, as well as a sprint out of Xerxes, a heavy contest over that red buff. And that's what makes or breaks teams at times, is depending on how many red buffs are stripped away. So the fact of the matter is that Big Money confirming it themselves is putting them in a good position not to get snowballed, because Cyclone currently do have a little bit of a gold lead, and I think some of it is coming down to this solo lane difference.
That's right, and some of it from these invades. Cyclone have committed heavily to stripping away the purple and red buff every time they can, by bringing over Orignalspartan, by Beaudilla and Axiom almost disrespectfully moving into the purple buff as soon as they can. And this is everything they can do to try and get a lead over this Kuzenbo Jing Wei, who are going to be nightmares in their own right once they start to come online. So they're doing everything they can to not let a Kuzenbo, a Jing Wei, and an Kuang, and a King Arthur just decide the game by themselves.
Yeah, Kuzenbo is going to be a good look when you're trying to zone away this Pele that's going to have the volcanic lightning damage, dropping that spiked shells, and maybe even a Thorns if Xerxes opts for that second relic slot. Is going to make it more tricky for YarBadKid to decide who he's going to hit with that volcanic lightning, because it just splashes. It's similar to the idea of Bakasura Regurgitate. You might be hitting your one original target that you want, but you're going to be hitting multiple targets. So that's why it's a good idea to get the Guardian Mails and also the Thorns to make sure that that AoE damage gets mitigated slightly.
Beaudilla doing everything he can to play this Sun Wukong correctly. Conviction just barely was able to jump away from a slow a little while ago, and he'll continue this aggression, even pushing up beyond the wave. The stun is there, right into the boar for a second stun, and now trapped by the trap. This should be a first blood for Axiom. Cyclone already on the board.
I like the fact that Beaudilla held onto his basic attack until he realized, like, uh-oh, he might actually get away. So he was actually mid-swing of his basic attack before finally Axiom did get the kill, giving the first blood to his hunter on an Artemis nonetheless. Puts Big Money in a good spot.
Bombs come out on top of YarBadKid, but even still, Cyclone can't get this red buff. The buff secured itself by adaption. who does have to commit a couple ults, or at least charge of his ults, but make sure he defends what's his.
Spartan held onto his Argus, not wanting to use that to try to steal away that buff, and it could have been used a little off the mark with that Excalibur's Wrath. Could have certainly poked out Shaolin quite heavily there.
It's fortunately off the mark, at least if you're a fan of Snadows and the rest of Big Money. Right now, Total Coup being considered, but Snadows heads back to lane instead. ShaolinSSinS getting a slight better of this trade, at least for now, so that's enough for Snadows to fall back. But he's got an ultimate up yet again, and just like that, he's back in the lead.
As long as he's charging up all those combo points and using his AoE abilities on to Shaolin and the wave, Snadows is without a care in the entire world. But this is the point where Artio becomes scary. Level 8, you almost have your maxed out burst ability, which I'm assuming is what Shaolin is leveling. If we could take a look. Yeah, exactly. So because of the bear swipes doing a massive amount of damage. So the healing from Shaolin is going to actually start mattering. Snadows is not going to be able to out DPS that healing.
Shaolin's controls the Totem of Coup as well. All 4 of them have gone the way of Cyclone so far on this Artio. And this is a good matchup. It's one that you expect the Artio to remain relevant in for sure, but not usually I feel like this early on. I feel like he's just been kind of outplaying Snadows.
I think that Snadows hasn't been able to clear as fast as he would have wanted to, as Shaolin has been able to put himself in prime opportunities.
Oh yeah, I think Snadows is dead here totally. There's just too many people. They're gonna come on over. He goes up into the air, that avoids the drop down from Argus, but it's nowhere near enough. Orignalspartan shuts him down. 2 on the board for Cyclone.
3-man ganking onto an Arthur with full health this time around. Not the variety treatment where everyone was relatively low, but this is a good look to shut down the Arthur this early in the game.
Xerxes in some trouble now too. Sprint comes out to allow him to reposition, and Cudgel won't be enough to actually get the kill. That was even with Tusky committed from Axiom.
They could have maybe used Beaudilla's ultimate, but the fact that they held on to it is a good look, especially with Adaption around the corner. I think they did ping him out, so they will back off ever so slightly. And off of the topic of you were mentioning how the Totem of Coups were controlled heavily by this Artio. Hold that thought, though. YarBadKid gonna get executed.
Time for Privative to get on the board. Big Money coming in with a big swing, finding that execute underneath the Tier 1 tower. But yeah, totally, these Totem of Coups have all been going the way of Cyclone so far.
And that's basically because Snadows hasn't been able to clear effectively. The way Shaolin has been controlling the wave is you hit the melee minions and Arthur, you get minion aggro, so the whole wave is right there beside you. Between your 1 and Druid stance and your bear swipes in the bear form, you're able to out-clear the Arthur before he gets too many abilities, right? Like, you leveling the same ability as an Artio, specifically the 1, is a little faster clear than the Arthur leveling the 1,
right.
Especially when the wave is that wide, because the blue stance first ability for Arthur, the line attack, is not long enough if you separate the wave the way you normally would want to do as an Artio.
So far, ShaolinSSinS has been able to handle the minutia and get the better of the matchup, even looking to start proxying. Though you might have to be careful. Kuang making the rotation over now from Privative. And if he has an execute available, which he does, then there might be some trouble. This is now magical damage, add into the fray as well. And yeah, this Artio should end up falling. They don't even need the execute if they can lock him down. But whoa, Privative didn't have it actually, so they never could have.
Oh, he missed one of the ticks. He missed one of the ticks, so the root not going to actually be applied. Privative, though, still taking a lot of damage, but there's just too much mana for Snadows to play with.
That's right. It looks like there was almost a chance for ShaolinSSinS to make it out, but a little bit too far forward. The magic physical damage split was able to shred through the Artio, and they find themselves a kill. But now what about Xerxes? He's in the middle lane. A nice job using the Sumo Slam right out of his ultimate, but it was nowhere near enough. YarBadKid cleans him up. 4v1. A little too strong. Adaption at least takes down the decoy.
He already used all his abilities around that little bend of the left side mid camps into the mid tower. So Adaption, without any cooldowns available, couldn't follow up from a perfect Watery Grave Sumo Slam combination, which would have definitely found a kill there. But a lot was invested to kill out Xerxes, as with his second death and having to back multiple times, he's 3 levels behind his counterpart Beaudilla, and also not even finishing off stacking this Guardian's Blessing. This gold separation between these two players is quite vast. Look at that, 5,000 gold to 4,000, a total of 950 to 1,000 difference.
He's been the one that's really suffering on the back end of this start from Cyclone, and they've done it from minute 1 with their boots on the neck of big money, particularly in this jungle and stripping away the farm, and it hasn't left a whole lot of options for Xerxes so far. And you see it in the middle lane. Even when he's able to get good initiations, he's just going to fall a little bit too quickly when Cyclone is willing to commit to it.
Shaolin already finishing off Breastplate of Valor. Shouldn't really favor out Snadows too much in this category, as long as Shaolin can continuously heal up. The cripple has come through, but keep in mind Snadows does have the ultimate available for whenever he wants it, and this is the timing that he should be using it.
Not gonna look for the commit just now. Totally, we've talked about how already big money have lost a lot in this jungle, as they will finally come over and grab one of the totems of Ku. They've lost so much farm, they're starting to get behind just from jungle invades. What can they do to slow it down? Can they be there to contest? Do they need bigger rotations? How do they slow this down?
They do need more synergy between them, but the thing is their composition is not that great of an early game composition outside of Arthur. Like Kuang, Agni, Kuzenbo, with a Jing Wei taking the soul lane out of the equation, wants to fight after that level 14 mark where you get about 3.5 to 4 items complete. And thus far, every time Xerxes is out of position, he just drops like a fly. He hasn't even been able to finish off his first defensive item after the boots.
Well, totally. Looks like we're going to see, at least from Orignalspartan, some mass, which we haven't seen in a while. We'll talk about the mass in just a moment, as Xerxes might be making his way back towards the afterlife. YarBadKid hunts him down with the volcanic lightning, and of course, that's right on the spawn of the red buff, which they'll happily take. Conviction, Privative, Adaption are all here, but I don't know if this is where they want to be. Adaption is low. He has Argus to help him out, but it's nowhere near enough. Adaption takes down Orignalspartan, and they're going to keep pushing. Beaudilla wants a little bit more. It's Axiom who gets the kill into Adaption and sends both mages back to base.
Here comes Privative, looking for a little bit of poke to find anybody with the execute if he can. Keep in mind, Beats is still up from YarBadKid, so not going to be the easiest time to find that kill. And leaning off of what you alluded to with the build from Orignalspartan, as he just leaves it at tier 2 yet again. My man loves to leave these items at tier 2. So for this Messenger's Mask, for 1,200 gold, you're getting 20 magical power, 10% movement speed, and 10% cooldown reduction. Now, if you think about it, that's pretty good for 1,200 gold.
Yeah.
Getting movement speed and cooldown reduction, that alone might be enough to spend 1,200 gold for right off the bat. So this makes a little bit more sense than it does to get a Cursed Orb, which is conditional about clearing a wave to get that movement speed. So this is just complete static.
And I imagine he'll be leaving it at the Messenger's Mask for the most part. He might come back to it towards the end of the build. And this is different from the Doom Orb because you probably don't super want to finish this out. With the Doom Orb, you're okay with it once you finally get to that point. But yeah, this is going to be a nice little power spike for him in the mid lane. It's unfortunate he took that spill. That slows him down a bit. But this game's still heavily favoring Cyclone totally. And in particular, this support matchup. Xerxes still level 7, just only now ticked over to level 8 after his 3rd death he took in that last fight.
That level 12 marker. Beaudilla,
He's so far from it.
Beaudilla going to get it first, and already with a horrific emblem, so you're going to mitigate a lot of damage if you ever upgrade that with especially the attack speed options. Privative definitely wanting to get off plenty of attack speeds to synergize with his dragons being thrown around, and you take that option away from him with maybe, let's say, a Witchblade as well from somebody to eliminate that attack speed, and Cyclone's looking for these small edges. I'm curious what the second relic slot will be.
Once again, big money to defend their buff, but Gold Fury being bursted quite quickly. Axiom and YarBadKid are bringing it quite low. They are able to secure the objective. Now it's time for the fight on the back end. Orignal has already dropped down Argus to try and push everyone out. Xerxes low and can't do battle with the behemoth, and so he shall leave. Adaption wants to keep pushing in, but he gets stunned out as well, which means that Cyclone should not only be able to make a clean disengage, but they might even have Snadows, who's got the thorns. He goes up into the air for the heal, but the whole squad awaits for him when he lands. Not going to be another variety play here. Orignalspartan gets the kill.
This is the difference between facing 4 players that has items completed versus 4 early game people that don't have the necessary DPS to lock you down. So I like the idea from Snadows, but he just needed a little bit more assistance, somebody else to take some of that damage away from him, to keep healing from the Gladiator Shield, to look for that kind of turnaround play. But with that objective going the way of Cyclone and multiple picks, they've now built themselves a 4,000 gold lead.
And as impressive as that play was, and I know I keep bringing it up, it's not something that Arthur's going to be able to do all the time, anytime he wants to, just walking into 4 people willy-nilly. It was exceptional circumstances, it felt like.
Yes.
Not every god can do that, even in the same circumstances, yes. but Arthur can't just do that all the time.
And the thing was, Variety had the stars aligned for him for that kind of a play because he had the right amount of cooldowns that he needed to get out of that. He had to actually move a little bit to buy time for one of them to turn around and keep looking for sustain. So, like you mentioned before, you can't just run at them willy-nilly with Arthur. You can certainly try and test your luck, but, you know, in the competitive environment and setting when it's all about calculations, you got to leave the luck at the door.
I certainly would. As Cyclone leave the Pyromancer at the door, they grab that one for themselves. They're up about 5,000 gold now over Big Money. Same in the experience market. This is the first time in this set totally that we've had a lead this significant this early. Cyclone have been in control the entire game. We've said it before. Big Money have a great late game if they can make it there, but Cyclone might not give them the chance.
Definitely not, but keep in mind, it was Cyclone that had the lead in game number 1 that kind of threw it after that Fire Giant call, but now that we're in game number 3, I think that they're thinking about that in the back of their mind, or they've definitely at least talked about it to prevent that mistake from happening for a second time. So with this kind of a lead, I'm expecting game 3 to be a lot cleaner. Spartan having a 2-level lead, Beaudilla having a 3-level lead over their counterparts is what's separating these two teams.
At least for now. As you see a couple backs coming out in the middle lane, Cyclone probably won't be forcing the issue anytime soon. Let's take a look at our build pass. Orignalspartan absolutely has left the Messenger's Mask where it is for now. Divine Ruin coming out, and this is very useful against a King Arthur. That's another way that you can make this guy much more killable, is prioritize his anti-heal. They already have the Brawlers and the Pestilence too. That's perfect from Cyclone so far.
And it's not just Snadows with the Gladiator Shield healing. It's the Bancroft's Talon from Privative to be able to deter Conviction with his Devil Glove, so good luck for him. Bancroft's even on adaptions, Agni, so there are some self-healing things that you want to strip away. And outside of that, the Messenger's Mask being left at tier 2 as opposed to Bumba's Mask for tier 3 is a good look because you don't want to sacrifice damage this early in the game. Maybe in the later portion when you need that mobility to run away from Privative at certain cases, but you're a long ways away from having to get to that point yet.
And Cyclone, I think, need to be able to win this set cleanly. Not that I'm rooting for either team, but if their aspirations are to challenge Shrimp Gang, then they need to be able to create some space between themselves and Benedict's Cavalry and Big Money, right? And that's what we're seeing here in this game 3. If they can close this out, if they can keep playing this cleanly, then that's how they can get themselves back in that conversation. If not, then I think Shrimp Gang might be alone up at the top.
That's right. In order to beat the Shrimp Gang, you need to become a lobster. Or a whale.
Or a whale for sure. They certainly like to eat the smaller fish. As Cyclone have the Hera forced out. They can't quite find the kill. In fact, Privative has been forced out, and now it's Spartan who's in some trouble. Snadows can't quite find the damage. Curse Knot comes out. He goes up to the air. Finally, Xerxes comes in, and he cleans up 1 kill. Now Snadows looking for the disengage, but it's Privative all alone in the middle of the fight, and he gets burned by YarBadKid.
But it's a 1-for-1. They're not done yet. Xerxes with a sumo slam right onto Shaolin, but I think that's what he wants to be in the thick of it all, taking the tier 1 tower. Meanwhile, Conviction keeping 3 members busy by his own right. This Jing Wei creating quite a distraction, beating away from the Artio stun. Gonna get rooted. No, a good slow and disruption out of Snadows that was able to get back after surviving.
That's right. He teleported right back to the mid tower and couldn't have been any later, or else they might have lost Conviction. He gets in just in time to make sure his hunter makes it down. And finally, some sign to life from Big Money as they duke it out here in the jungle and keep things at least somewhat even. This is what we were talking about, totally, right? This team has a chance if they can just make sure Cyclone don't get too far away.
The Aegis wasn't enough to keep Spartan alive at the beginning of that encounter. He was just getting completely targeted by Snadows, and he survived for a damn long time,
really
honestly. It took a little Nene Kappa being thrown from Xerxes through a wall, the perfect billiards angle to clip that last hit there, because otherwise I think for sure Spartan gets out of there using all his mobility, but not to be the case this time around. But despite Big Money getting the better end of that exchange, they're not getting the better end of the objective control. Cyclone pulling the primal.
It's under siege by Cyclone, and Snadows is now getting locked down as well. The objective will be secured by the Chaos team. Let's see if they want the fight on the back end. They pushed forward a little bit with ShaolinSSinS, but this doesn't feel like a heavy commit just yet.
I guess not. Privative was kind of busy and preoccupied with that tier 1 tower, making sure that they keep that tower alive for the map control. There is Cyclone backed on out of there, and they want to also extend this objective control maybe towards the Pyromancer that's due to respawn momentarily.
They are grouped up in mid lane, all 5 members here. As you mentioned, Privative has been on a trek of his own, so he hasn't been a part of this team fight. He still isn't, and they'll take that advantage and push into the tier 1 right now. It's too weak, and it comes down right away. YarBadKid still lurking in the jungle as well if he wants to come join.
He has Blink available, but I think the rest of the call is to go for this Fire Giant / Pyromancer objective, leaving Privative to his own accords to get this tier 1 tower. Giving his team 500 gold is nice and all, but if you're going to be giving up objectives like this on the right side, you might want to reconsider, because Fire Giant could easily be burned.
This is difficult for him. They could certainly benefit from having Privative here, and I think Cyclone, just recognizing that he was there, continued to press the issue. So he should be able to get the tier 1 tower. That is at least some answer back. Remember, that was Primal, that was the Pyromancer, the tier 1 tower in mid, and a pick. I mean, this definitely favors Cyclone.
It has been, but getting a farm for Privative to get some levels under himself is not a bad thing either for big money. You want to get the levels on the Kuang to give him the damage that he needs to get members closer to that execute threshold, as he does finish off the demonic grip, getting 2 of the important 7 rings.
A lot of rings. Do you want to make sure that you have?
Ariana Grande.
I definitely know this song. It's a good song.
It is.
Listen, you don't have enough money to pay her respect, totally.
I don't.
No one does at this point.
I mean, her receipts be looking like phone numbers.
That's right. That can't be true, right? That's a lot of money. That's like $1 million, right?
Yeah, that's 7 digits.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's a lot.
That's a lot of money.
But wait, are we including area codes? Like,
oh yeah, well,
oh my
for
goodness.
sure there's no area codes in there. Yeah, for sure. Ariana Grande's got a lot of money, but not that much. What was she on Nickelodeon? It wasn't that good too. I don't know. Cyclone, though, the ones in control here in this game. They're the ones with 7 rings so far, looking strong. And a 7K gold lead to match. Do they want to push with it, though, is the question. Fire Giant certainly on the menu if they'd like to grab that. And right now, Big Money have to be very careful about where they take their engagements. They certainly still have a chance to win this game, but only if they play it perfectly and buy themselves some time to get some more farm.
It's kind of the tug-of-war battle, I think, between these two teams, where Big Money is behind and they know it, so they're going to keep Privative on this kind of Benny Hill, cue the music now, chase down, where they're keeping the enemy jungler preoccupied as well. And this could only favor Big Money Esports to keep delaying the game, preventing Cyclone from using their Primal Fury buff that they got earlier onto this Fire Giant objective.
They now have Privative locked down. Finally, this chase pays dividends as they drop both ultimates, it looked like, to make sure they got that kill. We'll see in a moment, as at the very least Argus came down. So they got Privative and a nice kill for themselves, and they'll keep pushing into the tier 1 and left. But again, this is better than them losing the Fire Giant, right?
Yeah, sure. But they might lose a tier 2 tower if they wanted to keep going, or at least maybe a tier 2 tower in the mid tower. I think that honestly Cyclone could have combined their forces to keep sieging middle and left side, but instead it looks like they're going to be looking for this Fire Giant objective, as Beaudilla going to Tiger stun that Fire Giant straight in the knee.
Used to be an adventurer, but now just to settle for going for the Fire Giant. Snadows is going to come in and try and keep them off of. There's actually some low health bars here, at least in the form of Beaudilla, so they can't comfortably tank the target for now. And if they're not quick, the Fire Giant will switch over to the enhanced version. It'll be that much more difficult. Snadows stunned out by the Tiger, but is able to keep on running.
The dash, creating a little bit of a flame path.
No
YarBadKid not wanting to go through it quite yet. Xerxes taking so much damage thus far, but the rest of Cyclone just wanting to back on out there. I don't believe they know that Conviction is not even here to be found.
Might push a little bit harder if they were sure. Xerxes takes quite a bit of damage coming out from the Hera. Snadows has one up in the air. It's ShaolinSSinS, and the bomb certainly hurt, but not enough for kill potential. Now Privative is going to loop in on the backside, but YarBadKid, he smells it out and pushes him away.
The stealth was revealed after dropping the fire. Finally, Conviction was identified in mid. The pings came out, and that's when the Artemis coming out of Axiom made the rotation in that solo lane, but it was just too little too late, not being able to follow up from anything. A missed opportunity from the pick on Privative. They don't get any tier 2 towers. They don't get the Fire Giant. Big Money Esports still holding alive in this game as we're approaching the 25-minute mark.
Yeah, this is all good for Big Money, I still feel like, right? I mean, every moment that Cyclone aren't forcing the issue further is a good moment for Big Money. And let me make sure I'm saying this clear. Cyclone don't fall off in the late game by any means. Hera still very good. Artemis excellent in the late game. So is Pele and Artio. They have a very good comp. It's just that Big Money's comp, I feel like, gets exponentially better than it used to be once they make it late.
That's true. I think Kuang with 6 items is probably the best out of all of these gods in the game, as Orignalspartan forced to use the beads, getting caught a little bit off guard there.
But no more action, at least for now. We do have a new Fury joining us, the Oni this time, and that's enough for Cyclone to start an
Great
issue.
polymorph.
Xerxes pushed away by Argus, but Privative comes on the backside of the Oni Fury and looks for some damage. Conviction has found Spartan already. Big Money finally finding themselves a good fight. It's 5v4 in their favor.
Spartan a little bit too aggressive for his own good, sacrificing his life, trying to kill out Xerxes. This is going to give a 5-on-4 power play now. Big Money eSports pushing forward, killing Beaudilla, getting 2 as well and wanting more.
Doesn't even make it up onto the cloud, Totally. That's such a big win for Big Money. Now they can keep pushing down this left side. They don't have minions, but this could easily spell a tier 2, but they'll settle for the Oni Fury at least to start. Meanwhile, the rest of the squad is still skirmishing. They got to make sure Privative gets out of here alive as Volcanic Lightning comes through, doesn't hit home. And he's able to blink past.
Blink pass as Snadows now trying to run away from YarBadKid. He does have blink available. Will finally use it once he's out of combat. Oni Fury going the way of Big Money eSports. That's going to be a big, important wave now that Big Money needs to take advantage of to keep this game lasting a little bit longer, because they're still down about 5,000 gold.
They're still biding some time, still trying to get back in this experience. Not only is getting more normalized, but is becoming less and less relevant. A lot of level 20s on the board at this point, still waiting on adaption across that threshold. It's gold we're really eyeing now as the Pyromancer gets burned from Big Money, and they're holding on totally. They're not letting this game be ripped away from them, at least not yet.
Not quite yet. Snadows going to get crippled, but no one else to follow suit, and Cyclone really dropping the ball objectively of what they want to do with this player advantage. Once Privative died during the split push, by the way, the reason why that death was even allowed, I wanted to bring this up earlier, was because Spartan had the mobility to cut the distance, right? Like that Messenger's Mask, that 10% allowed him to cut the distance, funny enough, because the blink from Privative had to be used through the tier 2 tower. So with that one pick, Cyclone were like resting on their laurels of like what they wanted to do. They got a tier 1 tower on the left-hand side because they happened to kill Privative there anyway. So like, oh, we might as well go for that. But the idea afterwards was just too late. They didn't get a tier 2 tower because they all backed for the Fire Giant, but they then reset it to kind of like look for a fight, but never really realized Conviction wasn't there. So then they just wasted time allowing Privative to revive. And now everyone from Big Money is like plucking Cyclone away one by one, because Orignalspartan, yet again, too frisky for his own good. Overextending, trying to kill Xerxes is the biggest thorn for not only himself, but the rest of his teammates.
Well, now Big Money needs to regroup and maybe even take a deep breath. They've done a good job bringing this game much closer back to parity, but they don't want to overstep. This could still at any moment go horribly awry for them, as they can't quite find the lockdown onto Beaudilla until he'll make it back to the tier 2 tower. Orignalspartan pushes forward. Some damage, but nothing to write home about. And Big Money now have positional control around the FG, but Cyclone won't let them have it for long. They're surging forward. Beaudilla, though, takes half his health from the damage coming out from Conviction.
They're still pushing forward. Argus being dropped on the back line there. Nano taking a lot of poke, as well as Conviction, because the Tusky is starting to spread around.
Yeah, they called the bluff of Big Money eSports, and they were not ready to turn over their cards, at least not yet. That means a pick in favor of Cyclone. They take down Adaption. And now with 5 members up and Argus still chugging along.
Where are they going?
They're going mid, I guess, to push this tier 2.
I mean, I guess so. 40 seconds left on Adaption. Could have been a Fire Giant there, potentially, knowing that they have at least 1 stack of this Primal Fury buff, but instead catching out Snadows with a nice polymorph. Going to get stunned out by Beaudilla. Root doesn't matter as well. Trying to dash away for safety. The dash is coming through. YarBadKid with a Volcanic Lightning, and that's all it takes.
Yeah, but Xerxes able to keep him stuck underneath the Phoenix. That means YarBadKid at least gets traded out. And the tier 2 tower is still standing for now. So a 2-for-1 overall without really any other objectives going down. And Privative wants to try and make it even worse. He can't get the execute off. He just throws him up into the air, but there's no kill. Privative might be in some trouble now. He is able to blink back towards his own safety to keep himself alive.
He had to use the beads as well to prevent the Artio stun. A good hold from Big Money, sacrificing their soul laner for this tier 2 tower, but yet again, YarBadKid gets traded out as Cyclone. Just a little bit too slow on what they want to do. When you get a pick around the Fire Giant side, I feel like the instinct is to immediately go on the closest objective, like your first thought. Like you're going down a checklist. All right, we got to kill at the Fire Giant. Let's go for the Fire Giant. Oh, we don't have the DPS. All right, let's go to the next safest objective. But they do have the DPS. They had all 5 members standing strong. And with the kill onto Nano, without all those Agni bombs, you're sitting relatively comfortable knowing there's not that much AoE damage coming from him. So all you got to worry about is like maybe Privative plucking somebody away with the execute threshold. So as long as you have the great vision control around Fire Giant, you shouldn't have a bad time utilizing that 5-on-4 power play.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they had a good chance to try and grab the objective. I do want to point out, not that I even disagree with it, just want to make sure I say, that Orignalspartan does have the Genjis in his build. Is that what this is? On this Hera to make sure that he's plenty tanky. I mean, it's not something that we see all the time on our mid lane mages.
No, definitely not. Getting more cooldown reduction along with the resiliency against the Kuang is the thought process. It's a lot of magical protection, a little bit of health, some cooldown reduction to follow suit, having as well as the soul gem and Shoes of Focus. So sitting at 30% cooldown reduction, almost at cap. Well, you will be capped once you get the purple pot as well. So I'm not hating the builds, but I am hating this engage. Spartan needing to disengage.
Yeah, this is tough. He's stuck right in the middle of everyone. Snadows goes down quickly, and that's an easy win for Cyclone. They want adaption as well, who's already low. Argus continuing to chunk, and Spartan gets another kill. That's 2 for Cyclone in this engagement so far. And now they've got Xerxes as well. He's trapped inside the cripple field with few options. Orignalspartan with a double kill. Cyclone all of a sudden have blown this game wide open.
Beaudilla using his ultimate to heal up, keeping Privative a little preoccupied. Conviction taking out Spartan, yet again a little too frisky for his own good. But look at this, the instinct yet again to go for a tier 2 towers. Beaudilla trying to run for his life, still a little bit slow, doesn't have the mobility to outrun this Kuang.
The tier 2 tower in right does go down, and now Cyclone are considering the backs. Privative knows he has the burst damage, that if he can catch a couple people out, he can definitely find a pick here. He still has the ultimate as well, but right now he's only battling ShaolinSSinS. That will not be an easy target for him, and he'll fall back.
I feel like that could have been a kill, or at least forcing out the beads if everyone else was besides this Artio. You drop the cripple field, you can't really water illusion away, but instead doing the Pyromancer when Pyromancer is probably the least important objective for Cyclone, whereas picking out this Kuang opens the door for so much more.
Another good fight for Cyclone, but another fight where I'm wondering if they did quite enough, Toli, to start spreading themselves away. Big Money are steadily climbing back into this in terms of just having their builds fully completed and make sure that they can go toe-to-toe with Cyclone. Yes, they won the fight and they got the tier 2, but not the FG. They're not sieging.
I agree with you, Finch. The thing that separates the good teams from the great teams is not only your ability to win team fights, but what you give back in return and how clean you are about closing the game. And so far, Cyclone has proven to me time and time this game and this set that they've been able to win team fights, but they haven't proven to me that they're able to control the objectives in a clean fashion to win against the more important teams once it comes down to the later portion of this split.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that I'm being clear. This is a high bar that I'm talking about for this team. Like, me saying that I feel like I don't think that they're like getting all the exact objectives they can and collecting information efficiently. That doesn't mean that this team is bad. They're very strong. It's just the kind of bar you got to clear if you want to beat Shrimp Gang, and they want to try and win this fight as well. Beaudilla's already very low on the side of Cyclone. He goes right up onto the somersault cloud. Argus forced out from Orignalspartan, but dunking back in is Beaudilla to try and create some space for his team to breathe.
In the back line, Privative having to disengage. Snadows is very low as well, trying to disengage the rest of Cyclone, making sure Spartan going to be relatively healthy. The Argus is going to disengage as everyone a little too low from Big Money, specifically the frontliners. And without your frontliners, now your backline could be exposed. YarBadKid has the blink, has the volcanic lightning.
I don't know why they're halfway in between. They need to fully disengage. They lost the last fight exactly this way, where they didn't completely disengage on the back end, and Cyclone just ran them down. Now, It's Adaption here by himself, and the Fire Giant being threatened by Cyclone. There's very little that this lone Agni can do, except for trade his life away. Aegis has already been forced out. Yes, Snadows is here, and he actually has a chance as Adaption does fall.
The Polymorph going to keep Snadows a little bit busy. He's going through the fire a little bit too much for his own good, but that's going to allow Privative for the cleanup.
He does at least get Orignalspartan, and the Fire Giant still stands at this point. Now Conviction and Xerxes have rejoined the fray, and Privative might have some turnaround potential here. More than he thinks into Beaudilla. In fact, he does, and he finds the execute. Of course, the Kuang wins just about every 1v1.
This is the late game presence that you want from your Kuang. This is his time to shine. Sitting at 35 minutes, Axiom trying to run for his dear life as Shaolin can't really find the sneaky, stealthy Kuang.
This 3v3 might even favor big money. They still have Xerxes, Conviction, and Privative up against the Artemis, Pele, and Artio coming out from Cyclone. We'll see if they keep wanting to force this fight. It won't be easy for them, whatever they do, as Conviction hasn't gone the crit build on the Jingwei this time.
Shaolin really wanted to pop that Mad Guy's cloak, just to bear dash and roar in front of him. It is a 70-second cooldown, so I get where he's coming from, but that Kuang can punish you if you don't have an escape away from him, even with execute or even without.
Totally, more and more, this is starting to seem scary for Cyclone. Not that they can't win, but that they've given up some of this early advantage. Remember how hard Beaudilla and Axiom worked in the early game to force themselves a lead, getting rotations from Orignalspartan to strip purple and red buffs. That feels like an eternity ago when they were up 6,000 or 7,000 gold and Xerxes was down 3 or 4 levels. I mean, this is a virtually even game.
It is even in terms of, like, objectives in Phoenixes. Every Phoenix is still up. There's 2 tier 2 towers on both sides. The only difference you can really point out is the 7,000 gold lead that Cyclone have, which is about 1,200 gold, or 1,400 gold per player, which is still enough to consider getting closer to that 6th item once you're selling boots and getting Elixir of Speed. The Hunters are basically already at that point. Everyone else trying to make their way there now.
Still trying to find their way in, and I want to make sure I talk about Axiom. He's played very well this game so far, 4-0-6, 3rd on the player damage charts as well. He's been under duress very little in this game, while still positioning well enough to get off plenty of damage. To be fair, he has great frontliners from ShaolinSSinS and Beaudilla, but he's been doing a great job too.
Shaolin gonna get his Mad Guy's cloak pop there out of the Agni performance. Xerxes still kind of looking for that right angle, an opportunity to go in, but Privative wrapping around the back end during this whole scuffle.
But I think they recognized it. YarBadKid's going to try and catch him out as Argus rejoins us. Snadows is the target. He's been locked down in the cripple field. That cuts off a lot of his kit. But Xerxes here for some peel, so he should be okay. But Privative's been isolated. They don't quite know where he is. They tried to catch him with the Sun Wukong Somersault Cloud. But I think they have an idea. Privative will be caught.
Oh my goodness, that Tusky was creating so much of a distraction. Xerxes actually gets picked off, and YarBadKid chases down the Kuang the whole time. 2 members from Cyclone were not even there. That was a 3-on-4 victory near that tier 1 tower.
And that's because Snadows felt so irrelevant in that fight. They had such good lockdown on him from ShaolinSSinS. They were able to free cast on the rest of the team. Now the rest of Cyclone want this FG, the enhanced version, 38 minutes into the game, and they should be able to grab it. Though Snadows is healthy and he's back, and that means Cyclone can't commit.
I can't believe this is happening, Finch. Beaudilla was solo. He had to reset the Fire Giant onto Axioms. Axioms gets knocked out by the Fire Giant. This game just can't end with a Fire Giant yet because somebody is going to be able to contest it at the end of the day. These 2 picks are important, don't get me wrong, but there's still enough of a threat that big money can throw at Cyclone.
If Snadows and Adaption can get in there in time to try and stop them from securing the objective. The team is low. It's certainly stealable, but this is good from ShaolinSSinS. He's forced Adaption away. That means it's all onto Snadows in terms of stealing the objective. He's made his way in there. His hat shall be in the ring as big money grab the Fire Giant, somehow stolen away by Snadows. Conviction even gets Orignalspartan on the back end, and they might even have ShaolinSSinS as well.
I mean, they're trying so hard to kill the Agni. Needs one more shot, but the Watery Grave is keeping the Artio at bay.
That should be enough now. for Adaption to make it out. That's 2 picks totally, and the enhanced Fire Giant for Big Money Esports, and claps all around for Snadows, getting in there somehow and stealing that one away. But totally, 4v1, it shouldn't happen, right?
I think it was Conviction coming in
Did he
as
get in there?
well. I want to see the replay of that if we have it available, but Conviction certainly got in there to clean up a little bit. I believe he picked out Orignalspartan at the end of that.
Sure.
He beats, I believe, a knock-up coming through somewhere along the way, and the important thing to keep in note was the fact that Spartan was the one zoning Snadows, where that Artio, that Hera damage rather, can be used on the Fire Giant as well. Everyone needs to stop DPS from Fire Giant and retreat from the circle to protect your objective.
It's got to be clean when you look for that initiation, as already Snadows taking quite a bit of damage. He'll be backing and doesn't have teleport to get back here quickly. Mid Phoenix is low, but they shouldn't be able to grab it just yet, as Argus comes in and knocks up the entire team and creates some space. Cyclone want to try and find a way to defend, and it looks like for now they've done it.
Middle Phoenix, so dangerously low, but so is Privative, and without the dominance of your jungler from getting into that backline, the rest of the team gonna disengage.
Oh, did Minions get that tier 2 and left?
It looks like it did, because I saw the flicker of the Titan.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Man, that's nice for Cyclone. A nice little win that could potentially make things easier if they win if they are able to win a fight on the left-hand side. It might be easier for them to push down now. It's something that seems small, but could potentially end up being a big win for Cyclone.
This game could go either way still, Finch, as we're approaching the 41-minute mark. It's going to come down to, like, teams grouping up together on the same target, because now this is getting almost like a clown fiesta in the sense that every team fight is so split that there's not that much unity. Like, I like the idea, don't get me wrong, that Shaolin zoned away Nano. You don't want to deal with an Agni during those bomb stuns, but you don't have to go all the way to their tier 2 tower. There has to be a point during that chase where you're like, all right, listen, he dashed away. I'm good to go back and assist with zoning away Snadows now, because that cripple would have been very useful against an Arthur.
Exactly, and unfortunately Snadows was able to come in and almost free cast, and even some room for Conviction to get in and turn things around himself as well, as Big Money appear to have slowed down a little bit on their push. They're waiting for when they want to move up. They still have Fire Giant, as it looks like Conviction's pausing. There might be something that Big Money need to make sure they get correct. We'll take a brief pause here and let the players sort everything out before we get back into the action.
They still have plenty of time on this Fire Giant objective, but that last Fire Giant, man, that was such a dangerous gamble between Cyclone. I'm surprised that they stuck with it at the end of the day. Like,
I want to see it. Yeah, I want to see who got in there and actually was able to strip this away. It looks like it was Conviction with an auto, I think, totally. He just walked in and shot it.
Oh my goodness. And then he gets the kill onto Spartan.
Crazy.
He beats away the polymorph as well. The timing of that was perfect to get the last hit on that mid Hera. And that is what's allowing now them this power play to get themselves these Phoenixes that they are trying to get. They couldn't get that middle one quite yet. Privative got a little bit too low.
It really is unfortunate. And like you were saying, you've got to do a better job zoning, and not just zoning, but making a clear decision as a team about if you're DPSing the objective or are you trying to force someone off the objective and look for the kill instead. And because they were in this weird in-between space, that's how the doors opened up for someone to come in and steal it with basically an auto from what I saw.
Only Jing can do that because of the passive getting closer to the Fire Giant, being able to use that mobility to get in that position. Really unfortunate for Cyclone, but that's kind of what has to happen when you're thinking about defending a Fire Giant. You have to have all these little factors at the back of your mind, as Cyclone disrespected the Jing passive as well.
And I'm going to say it again, this is a high bar we're comparing these two teams to being able to think about all that and communicate it effectively quickly, right? It's so much that you're trying to talk about where the Fire Giant is, what your cooldowns are, where's everyone on the other team, whose job is it to do what. So when you're trying to effectively communicate all of that information so quickly, sometimes something like that can slip through the cracks, and a Conviction come in and steal it, or Snadows can work his way in. It is a lot that they're trying to keep track of.
Well, Cyclone doesn't have to worry about much yet, considering all their Phoenixes are up, but they don't have their red buffs, as we're seeing Adaption and Conviction with it around their waist, able to snag that one away. That's some good arsenal firepower that Big Money can bring to these sieges, as long as they can get that that buffer zone, right, where like one of the frontliners, whether it's Xerxes or Snadows, allows Adaption or Conviction to free cast. But it hasn't been easy for the backline from Big Money either. Cyclone has been able to really get in the thick of things. YarBadKid with the blink has been an absolute nuisance, sitting at 6-2-7 thus far, part of 13 of his team's 17 kills.
He's played well. But Big Money look ready to me totally for the sieging portion of this game. Look at Xerxes' build. It's so utility. He's got the Emperor's Armor, the Shogun Kusari to bump up some of the damage of his team, their attack speed specifically. And then between the Spirit Robe and the Oni Hunters, there's so much mitigation. I don't know if this Kuzenbo's ever going to die again.
And this is funny because of how many times he died in the early stages of the game. He had so many deaths early on. He had to back on numerous occasions. Beaudilla had about a 2 or 3 level lead from the get-go, like that level 7 versus level 10 marker, but now it's all even Stevens.
Except for YarBadKid, who's quite low in terms of HP. He's been forced to fall back, and now Cyclone are having a hard time winning a fight convincingly enough because the individual members of this roster for Big Money are capable of cleaning up a couple kills on their own and turning a fight around. So they are going to pull this Fire Giant Snadows on zone duty, but they burned the objective so quickly. Big Money now have the Fire Giant yet again, and they're surging forward looking for the fight. Axiom has already had to use the Aegis, but he's Artemis. He can't really get out. There's no execute coming from the ultimate, but it still sets up the kill. Privative finds the first one.
Beaudilla in the clouds trying to sustain a little bit further, going to land right on top of the Jing wave, forcing out the airstrike. Conviction looking for a landing pad into safety, but the rest of Cyclone trying to retreat. Spartan dropping down the Argus.
It's not going to be enough, though, even though the Argus came back in. Snadows continuously healing up by hitting multiple members of these abilities, but YarBadKid puts in good damage onto Adaption, but still can't find the last hit. Privative gets Beaudilla. Orignalspartan falls as well. Only 2 standing, not even 2. Privative with a double Conviction finds the deicide. Big Money with 3 members going to keep pushing into the base. Totally, that should be game.
This is game. Finch.
Wow.
Big Money eSports coming in clutch at the very end. They were able to withstand the early game onslaughts from Cyclone. All the early game shenanigans didn't even matter for Xerxes and the boys because they're walking out on top.
All right, so I know that the common expression is like you got to buy them like a drink or something like that, but in this day and age, you can buy them like an Uber Eats or a DoorDash or something for Conviction, because my man got in there, stole that FG, and that turned this entire game around. Between him and Snadows, they turned the game on its head in that one play, it felt like.
It was so perfect, honestly. Yeah. Like, you got to make sure that you're zoning effectively. Keep in mind the Artio zoning. It took so long for Shaolin to zone away Nano's Agni that he was at their tier 2 tower line. He could have came back. He could have assisted in the matters. All it would have needed was maybe one stun onto Jingwei through the bear roar, like literally anything. Even like body blocking the Jingwei a little bit would have mattered quite a bit. And that little factor slowed down everybody else. Cyclone dropping the ball in the last one. I just can't believe that happened, honestly.
And then Snadows, man, he was the one that was doing the inverse of what ShaolinSSinS was doing when they got that last Fire Giant. He zoned away everyone almost by himself, and the rest of the team solely used their abilities on DPS and the objective. They burned it quickly enough they could take the fight afterwards.
And the thing was, even though it was Snadows playing the Arthur, it wasn't because Arthur that he was able to make that play. I think you put a solo laner of any caliber, or any god rather, in that position, he would have been able to make that same play and buffer. The first pick, Arthur, didn't really stand out to me. So at least that from Cyclone, I'm impressed about.
They were able to shut down that pick at the very least, but not grab the win. Big Money eSports make the big plays. They grab the set. Let's get it back over to the desk to get their thoughts.
Big Money eSports, baby, taking this set 2-1.
And it was not an easy task by any means. I don't think for either of these teams. I mean, we're talking 3 40-plus minute games back to back to back that both of these rosters are trying to, battle each other out for the victory stance on. But Big Money at the very end, it turns out that, I mean, I kind of had a feeling, I'm not going to lie, when just by breaking those 2 compositions down on paper, but what really sealed the deal on Game 3, I think, was just the Jingwei Fire Giant steal. Somebody has to be there. You've either got to be 100%, and if you're not 100% about which direction that Fire Giant is going to go, the second that you saw the slightest bit of contest, I think that's when Cyclone should have known to just back off here.
Yeah, I completely agree that, I mean, the basic, you can't get in there and steal with a basic. That's a little bit rough, but that's just one highlight in Convictions. Here it is. Just a basic attack. Sure, it was wider. I don't care, but one highlight in a slew of them for Conviction. Great job on the Jingwei.
And again, the Jingwei was just one part of the process here. I think that when it came to the late game stride, Conviction certainly found his own, and the explosive bolts damage was just way too much to handle. Getting that boosted range, I think, or I shouldn't say range as much as width for the auto attack, certainly did not help out by any means for Cyclone. I think that honestly their composition just fell off a little bit towards the end there, because Big Money, the later the game goes, the more in their favor it became as well. You've got Kuzenbo, Jingwei, legit every single god on that draft is gonna stand out in the late game.
King Arthur also, but fun fact, King Arthur wasn't even the highlight of our match.
No.
I'm really just looking at the Jingwei. 7 kills without a death, and that confirms Big Money eSports get the win. They're 2-2 games ±2 as well. Shrimp Gang though, looking all yoked up there on top. Actually, is that a picture of Taco? Is that the logo for Shrimp Gang? Is that you? A picture of you?
No, muscle's too small.
That's what I thought. Console League here, Shrimp Gang still on number 1. And, of course, Big Money Esports getting a win to be number 2.
I'm pretty excited, though, because this is going to make things, I think, a lot more challenging for that second, third, fourth levying a position. I think that now these teams fully understand, you know, every single one of these sets counts. And, you know, when you also just looking at Shrimp Gang that far ahead in the standings, I mean, they're probably the ones enjoying this the most.
Just a little bit, living easy for the Shrimp Gang. But coming up next, we've got one more match. Hype Unit. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.